The gentle wind filled the sails of the ship Pharaoh. Edmond Dantès, a 19-year-old sailor who had been entrusted with command after the captain's death, stood at the helm, steering the ship toward the port of Marseille. Smiling, he turned to his friend Jacopo and said, "Whatever happens, I have to see Mercedes tonight. Nothing's going to stop me." But what Edmond didn't know was that on this very ship, enemies were silently watching him, waiting for the right moment. Danglars, the ship's accountant, was bitter and jealous. He couldn't stand that a young man like Edmond had been given command. A quiet plan was forming among the waves. Danglars took advantage of Edmond's innocence. He gave him a letter and asked him to deliver it to someone in Marseille. Edmond, unaware of any danger, agreed without hesitation. That evening, at a joyful party, Edmond proposed to Mercedes, the woman he loved. But his happiness stirred jealousy in Fernand, Mercedes' cousin, who had secretly loved her for years. The day of the wedding arrived. Edmond and Mercedes stood happily at the altar, ready to begin their life together. When suddenly, government officers stormed in and arrested Edmond before the ceremony could begin. Villefort, the ambitious prosecutor, interrogated Edmond. He told him the letter he had carried was sent by Napoleon, who was in exile, and it contained plans for a conspiracy against the French government. Edmond, shocked and confused, insisted he was innocent. But Villefort, worried about protecting his own career, joined forces with Danglars and Fernand to frame Edmond as a traitor. As a result, Edmond was imprisoned on a terrifying island fortress. Locked away in a cold, dark cell, betrayed and forgotten. Years passed in the dreadful Chateau d'If. One day, Edmond heard a sound through the wall of his cell. He began digging and finally broke through to the neighboring cell, where he met an old prisoner, Abbé Faria, a former priest who had been trying to escape for years. Faria, wise and well-educated, became Edmond's teacher. He taught him everything: languages, science, philosophy, sword fighting, and military strategy. With Faria's guidance, Edmond grew from a simple young man into someone strong and determined. But the most important gift Faria gave him was a secret: the location of a hidden treasure on the island of Monte Cristo. "If you ever escape," Faria said, "this treasure is yours." When Faria died, Edmond came up with a daring plan. He placed Faria's body out of the burial sack and climbed it himself. The guards, unaware of the switch, threw the sack into the sea. Edmond broke free and, finally, after years of imprisonment, tasted freedom. After escaping, Edmond drifted in the sea for some time until a ship rescued him. The crew, unaware of his identity, took him to the port. After a brief rest, Edmond, under a fake name, was hired as a crew member on the same ship. Some time passed, and he decided to go to the island of Monte Cristo, the place where Abbé Faria had spoken of a hidden treasure in its rocky heart. With the guidance he had learned from the old man, Edmond finally discovered the treasure, a vast and endless wealth. Now, Edmond Dantès was no more. He was Count of Monte Cristo, a man with a new identity and a plan for revenge. The Count of Monte Cristo, with his new identity and a different face, had returned to Marseille. He was seeking information that would uncover the conspiracy that had been plotted against him in the past. In one of the crowded taverns in the city, the Count found an old sailor from the Ferris ship. Without any introduction, the Count approached the sailor and placed money in front of him. His face was concealed and unrecognizable. "I want to ask you some questions. If you answer, this money will be yours." The sailor, upon looking at the coins, answered the Count's questions. Danglars. It was his letter. When they arrested Edmond, Fernand and Villefort were accomplices. Fernand told Mercedes that Edmond had been executed. After that, Fernand married Mercedes. The Count listened carefully to the sailor's words, each word piercing his heart like an arrow, fueling the fire of vengeance within him. With this new information, he sought out allies who would help him on his path. First, he found a girl named Haiti. Haiti had lost her father in a war, and his killer was none other than Fernand. Haiti, driven by a desire for revenge on Fernand, joined the Count. The Count also learned that the prosecutor had a secret child from his mistress, whom he had hidden from his wife. That child lived in an orphanage. The Count visited the prosecutor's son and took him to his mansion with promises of revenge. Over time, the Count was able to establish himself as a mysterious, wealthy man in Marseille and gradually got closer to Danglars, Fernand, and the prosecutor. Haiti was tasked with making Fernand and Mercedes' son fall in love with her, and she succeeded brilliantly, capturing the heart of Fernand's son. Danglars, who had become a wealthy man with a successful shipping company, was one of the Count's targets. The Count spread rumors that Danglars' ships had been hijacked by pirates, and this rumor quickly spread through the market. The stocks of Danglars' company plummeted. But Danglars realized the news was false and devised a plan to buy back his company's shares at a low price before the truth was revealed. He approached the Count and asked for help in purchasing his company's shares. Seeing the opportunity, the Count lent him the money, and Danglars pledged all his assets as collateral. Moreover, the prosecutor, who wanted to support Danglars at any cost, arranged a trial to prosecute the owner of a newspaper that had spread the rumor. However, in court, instead of the newspaper owner, the prosecutor's son came forward and announced that he was the prosecutor's son. This dealt a heavy blow to the prosecutor's credibility. But that wasn't the end of the story. In the hallway of the court, the prosecutor's son attacked him with a knife and killed him. The son was also killed by the authorities. At the same time, the Count ordered his men to steal Danglars' ships. These thefts led to Danglars' bankruptcy, and all of his wealth was transferred to the Count. Only revenge on Fernand remained. However, what the Count didn't know was that Haiti had truly fallen in love with Fernand's son, Edward. Haiti and Edward decided to run away, but the Count was furious about this decision and blocked their escape. The Count challenged Edward to a duel. Mercedes, fearing for her son's life, went to see the Count and asked him to cancel the duel. During this meeting, the Count revealed his true identity to Mercedes and told her the truth. He added that tomorrow, in the duel, he would intentionally lose to Edward, as he no longer had any reason to live. The day of the duel arrived. The duel began, and the Count intentionally missed his shot. Now, it was Edward's turn to fire. Haiti, with tears in her eyes, stood waiting at the mansion door. The Count's carriage arrived, and she looked at it with concern. The moment the Count and Edward stepped out of the carriage, Haiti's heart filled with joy. Mercedes, now aware of the truth, left Fernand for good. Her son also refused to live with his father, and Fernand was left alone. Edmond, who in the final moment had decided not to seek revenge out of his love for Mercedes, wrote a romantic letter to her and returned to the sea with the ship. Mercedes read the letter. In it, Edmond spoke of his love for her and his hope to see her again.